Waiter, more Dead by Daylight content please. That's right, I'm back again for another video on this uniquely divisive game. Right away, I want to make it clear that I don't actually hate Dead by Daylight. Far from it actually. My criticisms for the game come purely from a place of love. I want to see it do well and want to see it improve to become a better game and product overall. I say this because I want people to know that I'm not just hating on the game for the sake of doing so. I actually very much enjoy the game and appreciate its unique space within the multiplayer genre. Every game since which has tried to copy its formula has swiftly died, and that's for good reason. DBD clearly thrives where all other copycats die. It's uniquely brilliant in conception, and since its release, nothing like it has ever come close to the popularity it achieved. However, within the Dead by Daylight community, there's seemingly a very big aversion to criticizing the game and behavior, with players and community spearheads alike defending the company as if their life depends on it, and I suppose in regards to the spearheads, their livelihood does. There's a special status within the game many of the major community players hold, this being the Fog Whisperers program, which from my knowledge is only really given out to those who throw endless praise at the game, regardless of what state it's in, or at most, lightly scold behavior, hand-waving away neglect with a, "This is bad, but it'll get fixed soon guys." Now there's no denying that the game, especially now more than ever, is rife with bugs, glitches and exploits, all of which are progressively worsening and spreading with every new patch. Like a Hydra, with every head behavior manages to cut, two more replace it. It's now reaching a point where even the most passive and unassertive community members are stepping forward and expressing their dissatisfaction with the current state of DBD. I specifically want to give unexpected credit to Scott Jund, a normally passive sycophant who's found his voice and has started to overtly criticize decisions behavior is making in regards to balancing changes and management decisions. That's not to say I dislike him, I simply think he's too dismissive and bootlickish towards what is at the end of the day a multi-million-dollar company, treating them more as a personal friend than a faceless corporation orchestrating a product which has been spiraling out of control for years. Within the Dead by Daylight community, there are a few niche channels who do overtly criticize behavior, however far and few between they may be, namely Mad Moon, JC Glitchmaster, the Mr. Headache, and most notoriously Riversiver, the latter of which receiving extreme backlash for saying negative things about the game which the community disagrees with. That and some less than honourable controversies within his Discord server, which in all fairness was rightly blasted online. Purely in regards to their criticisms of Dead by Daylight, I agree with the majority of what these channels have to say, specifically JC Glitchmaster. However, outside of these channels, think pillars like Oddsdava, Hens, and Spook and Dukes, the general consensus among content creators seems to steer towards the notion that everyone should just accept the product at face value and just be happy to receive anything at all.
All this for a Hunter's rework? Chat, you know what your grandma said? Be grateful, alright? Be grateful, you know? Like, what, your wife leaves you, you get another wife, and you're like, all of this for a wife rework? Shut up, you know? It's okay, let's enjoy what we get. Let's not be such killjoys, man.
While I can agree with the sentiment, as in, we should be grateful that a game like Dead by Daylight exists, I feel it's extremely dismissive and wrong to silence your community's criticisms of what is, at the end of the day, a product which costs real money to buy. If this game was free to play, or the majority of its best content was free, I'd be happy to raise my hands and say, you know what, it's not for profit, so I can't expect too much. But that's not the reality of this situation. The reality is that Dead by Daylight and the majority of its DLC are paid content. It costs real money to acquire, and with that, the expectations we as consumers should have needs to be much higher. There's still a notion within the Dead by Daylight community that behavior is a small company. It's not and hasn't been in a long time. In 2025 alone, they've made over $95 million in revenue. That's not chump change. They're no longer this cute little indie company making a passion project. They're a corporation who regularly collaborates with titans such as Resident Evil and Stranger Things, and I think that's what the community at large needs to realize. Maybe back in 2016, issues like this were excusable, but that was nigh 10 years ago. A decade has passed since then of consistent growth and success. People need to reevaluate their view of behavior as a company and start treating them as they would any other game studio. On the topic of behavior as a large corporation, people need to stop giving them the benefit of the doubt. I understand that it's in good faith, but behavior absolutely knows better. They're taking advantage of what is, at the end of the day, an extremely loyal player base, exploiting their forgiveness to get away with scummy tactics. The most recent example which comes to mind would be behavior pulling a stunt to excuse themselves from ever revisiting the idea of skins for killer powers, a feature the community has been requesting for years. The reason they did this was due to the extremely tangled and unstable code. Rather than admitting they might have a problem and acknowledging the game's horrific code while they're at it, they decided to take the literal dog out back and shoot it, that being the Houndmaster's dog, creating a skin which would, for the first time in the game's history, change the model of a killer's power. The point of contention is that not only did they intentionally pilot this feature on a killer they clearly hated and neglected from the start, they also took the lazy route. Rather than creating a new cosmetic slot so players could freely change the skin of the killer power, they instead linked the power's new skin to a notoriously awful cosmetic. This way, the skin would undersell and be poorly received. Also, they could play dumb and say, We tried doing it, but you guys didn't like it, abandoning the idea and moving on from it because it wasn't profitable, pretending as if they didn't specifically manufacture that outcome. Behavior isn't dumb. Far from it, actually. The reason things like this keep happening is due to the rampant mismanagement within the company, and slimy underhanded stunts to create scenarios where they can absolve themselves from rightful criticism, and act as if simple basic requests, like customization for killer powers, is too much to ask for. These requests aren't too difficult to grant, behavior is just too lazy to do it properly. Even now, with the most recently released Halloween event, more bugs are piling up, with the headplates from Singularity's Mori now spawning on survivor faces. While this looks metal as fuck, it's an unintended bug, and more notably, the Twins now has an issue which causes Victor to be nigh unplayable, tanking the FPS and making Victor invisible. I think people really need to realize that the game is fundamentally breaking. For all intents and purposes, it's literally falling apart in front of our eyes. These aren't just small occasional bugs like you would see in a game like Fortnite, for example, which is extremely well managed and perhaps sees the occasional bug that slips through the cracks and rigorous QA testing. No, these are visual errors coming to the surface, like an iceberg. These errors you see in game, which affect your trials, are only the visible tip which is floating above sea level. What you need to understand is that the errors you're seeing are just the ones you're seeing. There are many, many more detrimental bugs running rife beneath the surface of the game, which is why it breaks so often. Behavior keeps treating the symptoms of the bugs rather than the cause, so it's just going to keep getting worse and worse. They do this because, like I said in my previous video, they aren't actually interested in fixing the game, only keeping it on life support and dragging it out for as long as possible before the legs propping it up buckle and it collapses into a heap of unfixable code. Speaking of QA testing, I would just like to point out while Behavior claims to have quality assurance testers, the evidence is heavily stacked against them, with absolutely ridiculous bugs and errors slipping through the cracks, like the infamous steel beam on the offering screen, the result of a model stretching into the bubble below the lobby where the screen takes place, which might I add is an extremely easy fix. It will take no more than 5 minutes. No exaggeration. On the topic of the steel beam, this also brings to light another point of contention I have with Behavior, that being their tendency to woobify themselves, paint themselves as quirky indie developers in on the jokes within the community, one of the flock, so to speak. Now, if it was for some innocuous community joke, such as the whole boop the snoot thing, then this would be totally fine. After all, it's a harmless joke built on the back of wholesome player-on-player interaction. What isn't fine is making light of completely preventable bugs within your game by taking advantage of your community's tendency to presume innocence when it comes to the egregious fumbles you consistently make, and to personify unintended appearances of assets, in the example of the steel beam, naming it Jim. Behavior made light of this by once again pretending to be in on the joke, releasing a badge of the beam for players to use as an avatar. Call me a stickler all you like. I think something like this is completely disrespectful towards the people playing and spending real money on the game. Behavior shouldn't be pointing and laughing at the mistakes they knowingly allow to happen. They should be apologizing for their incompetence and swiftly patching it out. Behavior isn't this heckin' wholesome small development team they want you to think they are. They're a gigantic corporation who sits comfortably at the top of an untapped genre. They're complacent in their negligence because to them, they're on the gravy train with no end. And guess what? With the Blighted Springtrap skin coming soon, as well as another licensed chapter in January, it sounds to me like the train has many more stops to go. On the topic of skins, I recently saw this post by the creator of the Fear of Reminiscence Dredge skin. It seems to me that with the context of the community grilling Behavior for completely bastardizing the design, the creator is outwardly stating that they were basically given no creative control of what their skin would turn out like. So much for Behavior's "we love our community guys" attitude. They don't respect nor care about you, the player. You're a metric. Things like these community contests are just a way to boost community engagement. They don't actually care about you or your vision for a skin, which is why they put no real effort into making them and churn out half-assed versions of clever and unique designs, taking the easiest and cheapest path possible. You want to put Behavior in their place? Stop mindlessly buying the first set of keys they jingle at you which catches your eye. I love Five Nights at Freddy's. Springtrap is my most prestiged killer, but I won't be buying the new skin coming out in a week or so, because I know the best way to send a message to a faceless corporation is not by complaining on Twitter, but by closing my wallet. If enough people do this, that oh-so-delicious gravy train Behavior sitting pretty on will come to a screeching halt. The problem with their train is that it runs on money, more specifically, your money. There's only so many times I can accept another apology delivered in the most sterile corporate speak possible before I lose my patience. Stop pay-pigging this lazy company into complacency. These flashy skins aren't going anywhere. Just please, wait until Behavior sorts himself out before sinking another penny into this currently collapsing game. Because if they don't fix this game soon, the skins and thus the money you sink into it will go down with the ship.